There is a wonderful line in the musical The Wizard of Oz when the wizard tells the Tin Man, "A heart is not judged by how much you love, but by how much you are loved by others." The outpouring of love and concern that India saw on August 14th, 2022, the day Rakesh Jhunjhunwala passed away, is a testament to how beloved and idealized he had become as an icon in Indian capital markets. The story of his life became the history of modern Dalal Street. Hello everyone, I'm Ramesh Damani, your host of this very special edition of Wizards, which we are calling Remembering Rakesh. Today is a bittersweet moment for me. Rakesh was my very first guest on Wizards when we started the series in 2005. Today, we're gathered to pay him a final tribute. With me to discuss his life, legacy, and learnings are some of the people who were closest to him. But first, a throwback to his first appearance on Wizards.
The first quality I need as an investor is to be an optimist. I remember what Peter Lynch says, that wars have come, and terror has come, and natural disasters have come, but company profits have gone up. So you have to be the eternal optimist if you want to invest in stock.
Joining me today are Bhaskar Bhat, Director of Tata Sons, Utpal Sheth, CEO of Rare Enterprises, Amit Goela, Partner Rare Enterprises, and N. Jayakumar, Managing Director, Prime Securities. Bhaskar, let me start with you. Do you remember where and when you met Rakesh for the first time?
Quite clearly. I don't remember the date, though. It was 2001, around, I think, November or December. He'd come to the office, and a common friend had asked for a meeting with me. I had not yet taken over as managing director. And it was late in the evening, and frankly, to be really honest, I thought it was a waste of time meeting people who were from outside the ecosystem of the company, because I had, more other things to do with sales reviews or business reviews and so on.
No time for him.
Well, I don't know. Frankly, it was a common friend who said, 5 baje aayenge. I said, yeah, le aao yaar. I mean, courtesy. And that evening, I remember clearly. But he remembered more clearly than I did. He remembered many words, many sentences, many actions of mine, which he kept repeating much later, which I didn't remember.
So you really went from being indifferent to meeting him to being dazzled in the course of that one meeting?
More than everything else that he gave, to me, the time he gave was the most valuable. Therefore, whether time on the phone, whether time to meet physically. So every meeting, to me, in a way, the uninitiated in this world of, investing, as in, running a company and creating value for a company is very far, at least at that time, from the language, the approach, the thesis that investors were using, and particularly with Rakesh, it was very different theses. So every time, I'll hear him listen, argue, fight, but finally end up learning something new.
Utpal, what motivated your boss?
Rakesh, I think, was an eclectic investor. He was open-minded, had very strong opinions. And what motivated him was his own aspiration for himself. It was not something outside of him.
Internally driven.
He was deeply internally driven. He was a 24/7 person.
Is it true he never looked at you when you came to the market during business hours because you were looking at the screen?
No, he would look at both. More at the screen maybe, but he would still look at both. I think what drove him was his intense belief in India, his intense belief in himself, and his intense belief in the power of the equity markets to create value and to create wealth.
Utpal, they also say that markets give you exactly what you want in life. It's your Rorschach test almost. What did he really want from his life, Rakesh?
Rakesh wanted, above everything else, for his beliefs and his convictions to be proven right, to be vindicated. And he, of course, more than achieved that. But I would say that Rakesh ji felt that he would, it was not the quantum of wealth that he would make, but if India became the India that he had in his dreams, then that would have made
That
him
was
the
vindication.
happiest.
Amit, who were Rakesh's earliest friends in the market?
So, hi Ramesh. So, from what I know, there was a trio at that point of time. There was Mr. Rakesh Damani, there was a gentleman, Mr. Rajiv Shah, who unfortunately passed away, Rakesh, and there was one more gentleman, Nimesh Shah. They all came to the markets at the same time.
Around 85.
Around 85, different age, different backgrounds, but they all came to the market with a single objective, and they became very close friends. And that friendship endured till...
What binded them together, Amit?
I think 3-4 things binded them together. One was their core belief in India. I think they were light years ahead of everybody. They figured out that India is on a different growth trajectory. Second, I believe they all believed that even though Bombay Stock Exchange at that point of time had a little bit of an unsavory reputation, it was a cabal of people or a group of people who controlled it, they all believed that over a period of time, capital markets will allocate capital efficiently to good companies, and they can make wealth over there over a long period of time. Which they did.
Legitimately.
Legitimately and ethically.
Jakes, quantify Rakesh's financial genius for me. Tell me his track record.
He famously said, which is also a statement of fact, that he came in with 5,000 rupees. And the last estimated wealth is, say, $5 billion, which is 40,000 crores. Now, 5,000 rupees in 37 years going to 40,000 crores is a mere 64% compounding. Mere.
Yes,
And
you
yet-
drop it onto the floor when you hear that.
And yet, some people will say, but you know, Warren Buffett, dollar terms. We said, hey, wait a minute. 5,000 rupees in 1985 was $500. $5
That
billion
became $5 billion.
today, $500 to $5 billion is a jaw-dropping 54%, which dwarfs Warren Buffett by only 2.5. It's a 2.5x over Warren Buffett for a person who started with literally 5,000 rupees, no grandfathering, came into an imperfect market, made it, you know, the way he did, and for a person who created capital by trading.
He's the only one in the Forbes 400 who made it through
There's nobody
investing.
else in the top 400 who's made it only through equity markets. It's a staggering. Others may have had listed companies where they got money from the outside.
Right.
He created his capital through trading, paid full taxes, was the highest taxpayer virtually amongst the ilk that we talk about through this period of 37 years, and gave a return to himself and his only investor, Rekha. You know,
As he always famously said. You know, this is time for a break. Let's look at the snapshot for the big bull's life. And welcome back to a special episode of Wizards of the Street, remembering Rakesh. Bhaskar, let me ask you again. Is it fair to say that his understanding of Titan was even ahead of management's or the promoters when he first invested in Titan?
I don't know about ahead or behind. Management was clearly, when I was the managing director, very, very focused on executing to a strategy which we had chosen ourselves. But like Rakesh believed in India, our belief in India came from our understanding of consumers, you know, because we were deeply in that. And therefore, we were investing in what we knew best. I think Rakesh's larger belief in the larger picture of India that was emerging, perhaps, you know, could be, you know, aligned to what you're saying. But I think what he helped management do was every time, and I know, you know, Utpal was there 2 times, I think, there was a visit to Titan. And the difference between, if you were to call management board and so on, and him was, this team would come, do a 2-day deep dive, and inspire the management. That rarely happens. I would always find these interactions, as if two sides of the table, quizzing you on what you did wrong and what,
This was a two-way street for you.
this was for us like the management, the youngsters in the team would say, we've not heard a guy say this. The belief in the company, not just in India, and saying, look, I think you guys can go here. And that, when somebody talks, like him talks like that to the management, then you don't need ESOPs and all, to make people perform. Very,
Bhaskar, did it surprise you
Yeah.
that Rakesh has held this huge stake in Titan for over 20 years? I mean, did you expect that?
I frankly didn't. In fact, once he did tell me, I think it was closer to when I was going to retire. And I think everybody knew about our relationship, our friendship and so on. So he once told me, look, Bhaskar, I hope, I think I'll exit when my stake hits $1 billion.
Right.
I said, look, Rakesh, on this part, there's an understanding. I will never tell you when, what, sell, buy. It's just not, we know each other for some other reasons. And I think we hit that number much earlier than I retired. I think he was thinking that it'll be a little after I retired.
In fact, you retired when the stock price was the highest it had ever achieved. I remember that day. But Utpal, let me ask you, Bhaskar talking about billions of dollars, Rakesh made over $5 billion. That's also probably understating it. But was making money his way of keeping score? Or was it just trying to be an income tax commissioner's son, trying to escape his middle class roots? What was it?
Rakesh was a huge believer in capitalism, and he felt equity markets were the temple of capitalism. And he believed that eventually capital allocation helps you to create wealth. He was doing what he believed in. And that was all. He was always focused on opportunities.
Money was an outcome of that.
Money was an outcome. It was, and he believed that the means are as important as the end. So therefore, making money was just an outcome. It was not the process.
Understood. And you've often said that, Amit, that Rakesh wanted you to do it legitimately. But you also once told me, Amit, that you don't teach Sachin Tendulkar how to bat. Yeah. But even Sachin retired. Did his illness and ill health in the last few years, did that diminish his appetite for equities?
No, there was nothing called quit in Rakesh ji's vocabulary, mind, thought process. There was no quit over there. In fact, Ramesh, in the last couple of years when he was going through a difficult time, the mood was not very good because of COVID. I think he made some of the most aggressive bets of his life. I think agility-wise, ask Utpal also. I think he was working at a performance level which I had not seen in the last 5-7 years. Maybe in the full bull market, first one, but this time it was just unbelievable what he was doing. And some of the trades, some of the investments which he put out, they multiplied several times.
He never lost his appetite. Jakes, they say that he's made billions, he never lost his appetite. What are some of the techniques that you saw him use to become a successful investor?
I think it's said that it's not important how often you're right, but how much you are in when you're right. I think nobody epitomized that better than Rakesh. In fact, I used to be, I would say, almost an open-mouthed, shameless admirer of the way that he could do it, because the ability to carry risk through leverage, through futures trade, to pyramid and do what his conviction told him. And every trade was a new trade, forgetting the fact that you already had an exposure. I'm sure that in his mind, exposures were being calculated. He had that little pocketbook where he would, in the middle of the night, tell you exactly what he was doing. But I think the ability to leverage, that is the most important thing, and double up. That is one particular technique. The other which I felt was, many moons ago, a gentleman called Ramesh Damani, R.K. Damani.
Ouch, you're going to remind me.
R.K. Damani and Rakesh, we met when Pantaloons, at that time it was the Future Group, which had just been called Pantaloons, had a market cap of 20 crores. And there was 25% on offer at par. And the three gentlemen in question spoke to Kishore Biyani for an hour and a half and passed the opportunity. Never mind, I thought, these things happen. So as a banker, 6 months later, we placed it out, etc. Stock went up to about 100 over a year. Rakesh identified an opportunity because certainty had given place to uncertainty at that time. I remember him coming in at 100 and he rode the wave up to an average of 1800 rupees. And I think that the fact that something has happened is in maths, they call it a no memory property. He just shut out the past and said, the opportunity is now. So the ability to get caught up in your own beliefs, which people have, you know, which makes you say, but I looked at the stock at price X. It doesn't matter if you did. What did you do?
Jakes, as you said, but just to set the record straight, 1 hour, of course, twaddled his thumbs. The other hour built a retail empire. And the third hour actually invested in the stock. So there was some sort of happy ending to it. But let me ask you, you wore a hat as an investor and speculator, Jakes. Okay? That's enormously difficult to do, isn't it?
Enormously difficult when put together. I've actually had situations where he would be aggressively short in the futures while holding stock. And he would wear the two as seamlessly. It was almost as if you didn't understand biology, you had a left brain and a right brain that worked in parallel without a problem. Nobody's been able to get that dichotomy right, but I think he did it. And that's what made him hold on to stocks while using the market mechanisms to insulate against a potential fall. And that's what I mean. I think he was a bigger trading genius that has been made out. And he was a bigger investor that has been made out because you put the two together.
It's almost impossible.
It's almost impossible to do it.
I agree with you, as having tried both of them and failed miserably at them. But Amit, let me turn to you. A lot has been said about Rakesh the investor. I want you to give me a few points about Rakesh the man.
Thanks, Ramesh, for asking me that question. I think not much has been said about that. First thing, right off the bat, I think Rakesh was the most fearless man I've ever come across. He knew no fear. He did not know the meaning of the word fear. Whoever he was meeting, right from the Prime Minister down to a company promoter or anybody, he was completely fearless. That was the biggest thing about him, I feel. Second was his transparency. What you saw is what you got. There was no difference between what he was thinking and what he was saying.
Open book.
He was a completely transparent open book, which was as open as could be. There was nothing private or public with him. What he spoke in private, maybe he spoke more loudly in public.
Correct.
Rather than trying to be talking in whispers or hushing it up. Yeah. So these were the two things. Third was, I think, one thing which I saw of Rakesh towards the end was his stoicism. You see, he asked for no quarters, he gave no quarters. Towards the last year or so, things were getting hard for him. One by one, a lot of things which he liked he had to give up by force. Not that he wanted to give up, he didn't have a choice. And he never ever complained. Yeah. He never blamed anybody for it. He never asked for any sympathy. I think that was just unbelievable.
But Amit, you also told me that you really were touched by his compassion.
Extraordinary. So, fearless, and then this compassion which is there. You know, Ramesh, you won't believe it. During COVID, my wife lost her dad. And she had a tremendous back injury. She was not being able to move. And 2-3 months later, when things cleared up a little bit, I went to his house and told him, wish we could go to Bilaspur. And lo and behold, he organized a charter flight. With the doctor.
With the doctor.
He didn't even ask me about it. How can this can come only if the man is compassion beyond normal.
With that, we've come to an end to the first part of our eulogy for the big bull, remembering Rakesh, life and times from some of his contemporaries.
I have very fond memories of Rakesh from my school and college days. Rakesh had passion and was always very ebullient. A great believer in stock India, believed it was undervalued, and we can see the transformation of the Indian capital markets in front of our eyes. An amazingly sharp instinct and deep incisive ability to look through numbers and see the opportunity. Rakesh, we are proud of you, and I miss you.
He was someone who touched my heart in terms of actually giving me that realization that the path that I was on towards the path of structuring the company was the correct one. His endorsement, his encouragement, his guidance in that meeting not only gave me courage and conviction, but also gave huge amount of positivity and conviction to my entire team who were present with him.
He was an eternal optimist, especially during the difficult periods of GST implementation, demonetization, and COVID. He was constantly there, counseling us how we could use every crisis as an opportunity and ensured that we emerge stronger after all these crises.
Everyone at Akasa will be eternally grateful to the late Mr. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. Rakesh was an early believer in Akasa's vision and plan. Rakesh was passionate about all things Indian. Rakesh was extremely passionate about Akasa's customer experience, but he was equally passionate about the employees' health and well-being.
To conclude, I would like to share a poem by Ellen Brenneman in which I found comfort during those dark days of August. Think of him, she says, as living in the hearts of those he touched, for nothing loved is ever lost, and he was loved so much. Thanks for the memories, my friend. In the next episode of Wizards, we will continue our chat about the life, legacy, and learnings of Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. We will be saying farewell to Jayakumar, who has other commitments, but we will be joined by Berjis Desai, executor and trustee of his will, and former managing partner J. Sagar and Associates. Thank you, and do keep watching Wizards.